Cell phones?
Say about it.
Yeah.
Remember the trick? Remember the trick?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't know. I was all getting into this because there was something I posted today that.
You have your MLS number up? I can read off.
Oh, you need a pen
No, I should
in
go.
case you need to take a note.
Motivation, guys.
Motivate, yeah.
You have to
motivate.
test it. Testing, remember sideways. So how was you? Yeah, how was? Well, I guess we'll wait. But how was your week?
Great. Awesome. I know you guys are doing good, so I'm excited to go check out that place after we're done here.
Well, I don't think we are now because
Oh,
you
no.
didn't show up. So
Yeah.
we're not gonna bring that one up.
Okay.
We'll bring that up if it came into play. So
Gotcha.
we don't want to. But did you need him to test it or?
Yeah, actually, Bob, can I have you talking to the mic too?
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, testing. Testing.
Okay, we're good. So whenever you guys are ready, just let me know.
We're ready.
Ready?
Ready? And 3, 2, 1.
And welcome back with Mortgage Talk with loan originator Robert Bulmer, NMLS number 322918, and myself, Bobby Bulmer, NMLS number 2060902. We're back with our special guest, Mr. Raymond Aquino, and we're going to dive deeper into his story about how he accumulated his properties and some more details about how he does it in his day-to-day.
Hello, everyone.
Hey Raymond.
How you doing?
Doing well. So, we talked about. This is Robert. We talked about changing your mind. Your mindset in the beginning, and we told everyone you were up to about 14 properties or 14 units, we call them.
Yes.
Which breaks down to so many properties because you do have a couple that are more than one unit.
Multifamily. Yes.
I think we ended up with you again, and to answer Bobby's question early, you basically you and your wife got the house you lived in, and when you came together, you got a house together and decided instead of selling the houses we lived in, we're gonna start managing them ourselves and turning them into rentals.
Absolutely.
Alma, and this is where women have a level of discipline. She came in with a paid off house. You came in with the loan on your house, bought the better house you guys live in, and then you decided, hey, I wanted a rental. And take over any time because that's where. And then you ended up getting the rental. We had to restructure your whole scenario to save you $1,100 a month, be debt free, and from there you've just been managing your mortgages and a HELOC, home equity line of credit. We can get into that. Oh, hey, yeah, because a lot of people who go, mostly you can get them through credit unions, but a lot of people you got to make sure it's the right HELOC. FYI, simple interest. We talked about that. You only pay interest on what you owe based on that simple equation. So make sure there's no minimum payment. So sorry about that. nice work, Bob. So take over,
Quick
Raymond.
reflexes. I'm sorry. Quick reflexes.
After a week of working hard, where are you at right now? So obviously we got to get deep. We're only 1, 2, 3, 4 houses in out of 14. So you got your first rental. Everything's restructured. You're debt free, and you have a lot of buying power. What's next?
Okay, so what helped us out to have a lot of that leverage or the liquidity that we had to purchase more properties, Robert, was refinancing. After we restructured, if you remember, 6 months to about 8 months later, the interest rates were so low, I decided to cash out refinance on 1, 2, 3 properties.
You did every property you could.
Every property that we could.
You stuck with the plan.
Yes.
What was it? Yeah, because you were. What do you call it when you cash out? You have a little.
So I didn't learn the BRRRR method, which is you buy the property.
Let me write that down. What'd you say?
BRRRR method.
BRRRR.
It's the acronym for buying the property, rehabbing the property, renting the property out. You refinance the property, and then you repeat the process.
Nice.
So it's basically BRRRR.
Gotcha.
And so all the properties that we had at the time, after we restructured everything, we refinanced, a cash out refinance. And I knew that cheap money was the way to go, right? So knowing that my rentals, the rental payments every month was going to be still less than the mortgage payment was a no-brainer because the interest rates were so low at the time.
Pulled the trigger.
Yes, I pulled the trigger, Robert, and that was just the best thing that I could have done because that helped us gain so much liquidity and set us up to buy more properties at that time, guys. So
Took you to the next level.
oh my goodness. It just gives me the chills because when I remember back going through the process, even though the closing costs and everything added up to so much, it didn't matter because the money that I was borrowing was so cheap, right? The interest rates were so low that essentially it was like zero as we would call it, right?
Yes, and I'm weirdly photographic with people's scenarios. I've always been really good in math, but if I remember right, when it all came down to it, you basically increased across the board because we even redid your main house.
Yes, we did.
Rule number one: you get the best rate and the cheapest payment on the house you live in, and you get the most cash out. So that's, we can't say that. So you always start with the house you live in, and even if you have a paid off home, but we started with that home, gave you a bigger gave you a bigger home equity line of credit, max cashed out across the board. I don't know what you ended up buying power, but I do know that it was barely $100 higher than the payments prior.
Yes. So once we restructured the HELOC, we got a new HELOC on the primary residence. We refinanced everything out, cash out refinance. And I'm just gonna throw numbers out there. After it was all said and done, we had about over $700,000 that we can play with to invest in more properties at that point. I know it's not that $1 million number that everybody's looking for, but you know what? You start somewhere, guys. You have to put the fear aside and recognize a good opportunity when it's there. So that's, and I can't stress enough that educating myself really helped us gain this portfolio. Because without me studying and educating myself on YouTube, talking to people, growing my network, I wouldn't be where I'm at now, guys.
Bobby.
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to ask you about that too. Is when you started out, right? Because obviously you didn't wake up one day and you had 10 properties, right? So when you started out and you were going to look at your first house, right? Not even your first investment, just the first property that you went to buy. What kind of money were you saving? Like, was it tight for you? Could you pull it off easy? Like, what was that like?
Okay, let me go one step behind that one house that you're talking about.
Right.
So before that house, we bought the restaurant, and we were looking under the mattress, under the couch cushions, for extra change to make sure to be able to buy this restaurant, right?
Right.
So after saving up all that money and looking for the extra cash that we could find to buy that restaurant, finally bought it. And then that house that you're talking about, Bobby, the same thing. We were still tight. This was, I want to say, a year later, after expenses and putting money into the restaurant, fixing it up a bit, and buying new refrigerators and ice machines and so forth. We had to, again, look underneath the mattress, look underneath the couch cushions to buy that next property, guys. So it takes a lot of budgeting, it takes a lot of discipline, and a lot of mindset shifts, because if you don't change your mindset and really save money and budgeting and put it on paper, guys, guess what? You're only going to get so far. And that's how we've created this portfolio, just by having that different mindset and that shift.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people talking about changing their mindset too, and that's really where it starts, is writing how much money you have down on a piece of paper and understanding what you're spending every month and how can you save the most money. Obviously cutting out, little expenses like Netflix, probably no monthly subscriptions, like anything really that's just for pleasure, like the Netflix account or the Hulu account or anything like that, to keep that extra money, because at the end of the day, it all counts.
So we call that a balance sheet, Bobby. It's your total income monthly minus your total expenses monthly. There's two columns to a balance sheet, right? And if you guys aren't familiar with that, the information age is upon us, and we have education, and we can find out anything at the tips of our fingers, right?
Yes.
Through our cell phones.
Yes, supercomputers.
I'm looking at a supercomputer right now.
Yes.
Right here in my hands.
So if you guys want to start with a balance sheet, very simple. Figure out how much your income is every month, and make another column to where all your expenses are written down, your cell phone, insurance, car payment, gas every month, food every month, and utilities, plus your rent or mortgage if you have one. So once you add all that up, you deduct that from your monthly income, and you'll get your net cash every month, right? That you can save money, save, and eventually invest in some kind of cash flowing asset.
And that kind of leads us to what this show's all about, is we're going to get a little education right here based on what you said. When you're figuring that out, you're using your take home. We call it your net. When we're qualifying for a home loan, when you work for somebody, your W-2, we call it, we're using your gross before taxes. Now, there's always a misconception with self-employed. Oh, it's harder to buy a home when you're self-employed. Well, but also the old saying is you have better tax advantages when you're self-employed. Well, it's really, when you're self-employed, we don't use the gross in the industry wide. The rule is, or the general guideline is, we're using your net, 2-year net income after all your write-offs. So there's a huge difference between gross and net. So when you're doing your balance sheet on your own, you're looking at that net. So getting back to what we kind of, obviously there's rabbit holes and we go off on but getting back to where we were, we ended up cashing out across the board. You said close to 700 plus?
It was 700 plus when it was all said and done with the savings we had from my job, the rentals that we had at that point, the restaurant, and then cashing out everything, or the properties at that time. It added up to a little over 700,000. So that's what we had to work with at the time to purchase more properties. And sure, we could have went and bought $250,000 Maserati or Ferrari or whatever they're worth, right?
Yeah.
But no. We disciplined ourselves into buying more cash flowing assets, which are rental properties. That's what we invest in. We're buy and hold investors. And this is what's going to help us get to the next level and help us retire early, guys, because financial freedom is why we're doing this. We want to become free financially by having all our assets pay for our cost of living and sustain our cost of living. So imagine this, guys, just really quick. A lot of people are working, right? Everyone's working at their W-2 job. Say you got fired, injured, and you couldn't work anymore. If you didn't have any assets to sustain your costs of living, guess what? You're going to have to go on unemployment, disability, whatever it might be. And at that point, is that going to be enough to cover your cost of living? Majority of people, no, they're going to need more than that, right? 100% of what they're making at the W-2 income job. But that really hit me hard, guys. So I got fired a while back, and I remember that feeling, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? So I had to protect my family and myself, right, financially by buying these assets that will sustain our cost of living if in case I got fired or injured at this point. Yeah.
Prepare for the worst and
hope for the best. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you obviously, when you were going to do all this and, when you got fired and all that and your mindset did change, how did you start saving money? Like, how did you start doing that?
You know what, guys? Before I met my wife, I was living paycheck to paycheck. I had $49 in my bank account when I met my wife, and I didn't have enough money to take her out one day.
Let's go back further. Did you own a home before you got divorced?
When I got divorced, and I almost took my life, if you go 3 episodes before this one, we did have a property together when I got divorced from that my ex
person. Yeah, I was gonna say person.
You know,
It's
Yeah.
again, that's the usually you're gonna rent or own, and if you're working hard and consistent, you should be really buying the home. Looking for that home to buy. So, did you have anything else? Did you want to ask him something?
Not really necessarily the question, but I think we should shout out our phone number in case any of our listeners want to reach out to us. If you guys have any questions, you can reach us at 760-669-7813. You could also visit our YouTube channel, that's Mortgage Talk Podcast on YouTube. And Mr. Aquino, I think you have a shout out for your YouTube as well.
Sure. I started this YouTube channel this year. It's called Investing in Rentals. I found my passion. And the content that I put out is basically to motivate, influence people in educating themselves on buying cash flowing assets. For my wife and I, we invest in rental properties that at this point will sustain our cost of living if we get fired or injured at our W-2 jobs at this point, thank God.
And you guys, obviously, God forbid that anything does happen to where you get fired or injured. But, like you said, even if that does happen, you don't necessarily need your job anymore.
Absolutely not. I have it so that I can qualify for that one more Freddie Mac loan that they allow you to, right? Because I'm after I refinance this property we're doing in Pinion Hills, Robert, I'm going to refinance out of that property. That'll be my ninth mortgage, my ninth loan. So I'm waiting to quit my job, and after I get my 10th one, once I qualify, then I can probably do real estate full time.
You'll never quit. You're too hard of a worker.
Yeah,
you know what?
You're a stacker, Raymond.
You're probably right. You're probably
That's
right.
good.
And I'm just saying that, but yeah.
So I have some questions based on getting almost $1 million. Talk to your tax person, but when you borrow money from your equity, it is not income. It's tax free. That's the real legal thing. Talk to your tax person, but from our understanding, you're borrowing, you're on your equity, you're paying it back at an interest. It is not your income. Now, again, he will file the proper taxes and whatnot, but that is amazing to me. And here's another thing. We talked about long-term investor versus short-term investor. Okay, did when Raymond went across the board and cashed out, do you think he wanted a no-cost loan? He's educated now. He isn't going to come and say, I want a no-cost loan, because all that tells him, and now as an investor, I'm getting the highest interest rate. Rate affects the payment more than 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. I'm serious on that.
So one thing I look at, Robert, whenever I go refinance, and we call this buying down to points to get the best interest rates. Now, before, I didn't think this way because I wasn't an investor. I'm an investor now, and I always want to get the best interest rates because I'm investing for long term. So when Robert tells me, it's going to cost this much to buy down the rates, I do not mind, because I know my payment's going to be less every month. And not only that, the cash flow every month is going to be greater at that point.
Yes, we're looking at borrowed money, cash flow, that net take home. You made a good point, Bobby. You're 20 years old. You just turned 20 years old recently. Why don't you give a little background on where you're at? Because again, you're that age group coming up to where, what are you trying to do? I know you're multi-talented. I mean, as far as what you've done at an early age. So, you've traveled around the United States and karate and MMA tournaments. You've traveled around to teach. You teach the youth right now. You're still involved. You've been a mechanic. You've actually worked at an auto mechanic. That's classic.
Amazing.
Classic story of here's your car, and it had to be rebuilt from the inside out.
I think next show is going to be interviewing Bobby.
So and then of course having your real estate license or your NMLS license at such a young age, you've been around it. A lot of good mentors. But you've a little different from you're getting thrown in to say, hey, go get relationships, meet people. How's that been for you?
That's probably honestly the hardest part of if anybody listening is trying to get into finances or have a job in finances, the hardest part is going to be building the relationship with the people, understanding what you're doing and what's going on and how putting together a loan works or how buying a property works. That's all the easy part. Guidelines are the easy part. Knowing what the credit score has to be. That's all the easy stuff. It's waking up and just doing it every day. You just have to wake up, you have to go out and try to meet somebody, and that's probably the most difficult part about being young in the business and going through it, is just building that relationship with people.
That mindset,
Exactly. It's changing it.
And I call it, because I was thrown in this business at a young age, I call it the commission feeling. They said, hey, I'll put you on a salary. It was 20 years old back in 98. He goes, I'll put you on a salary of $2,500 for the next 2 months. But if you do good and get commission, you don't make the commission, you make your salary. So choose. I said, give me the commission. I wasn't there, I was the same thing like Bobby. But you've had the hourly, you've been thrown into the wolves, you call it,
Yeah.
to people to trust you, and you've came through too, that knowing the guidelines, having the support cast behind you,
Right.
Where your buyers obviously for life, you've made buyers for life.
Yeah.
At such a young age. How has that been, and what's the difference of, I call it the commission feeling, but from clocking in to, even though we're on a contracted kind of commission salary, we get a set amount. We can't have any financial interest in the rate or fees charged on a loan. We talked about choosing the right rate, how you're supposed to choose, and what's changing the prices for each rates. Oh, that reminds me, I wanted to do an interest rate update. We're not allowed to get specific, but we're seeing an inversion with certain things with treasuries, and the prices for rates are trending. It looks like this is a good week to lock if you're in that position. So there's interest. But other than that, Bobby, what's that difference, and how's that been?
The income difference and kind of switching from an hourly to a straight commission, to where I don't get any hourly, and it's basically, like you said, thrown to the wolves, sink or swim in the water with the great whites. What you put into it is what you get out of it. The switch was scary for me. I was used to clocking in and getting a certain amount of money every month, and I was happy with it, and then not having that and just going off of your savings. And you really honestly, you have to trust yourself. You have to trust yourself to get up in the morning. You have to trust yourself to, and very little of it is motivation. Maybe 1% of it is motivation when you get up in the morning and just go work, or you go, even if you do have a clock in job, you go clock in, or you're going to meet a realtor or going into an office. You have to, it's almost none of it's motivation. You do it because you have to do it. You do it because you want to strive. You have to want to strive to better yourself, and motivation just doesn't get you there. You just have to know what you do every day and wake up and do it, just because it's what you have to do.
Would you say that? What would you say, Raymond, with that mindset change? And I call it getting out of your comfort zone. Every time you're out of your comfort zone, something amazing happens. What would you say?
Well, I was sitting down in my garage the other day, and I was thinking about how am I going to make that transition from an employee to an entrepreneur, self-employed person, right? That's kind of the trouble I think a lot of people have, is having that mindset that we're all used to, is getting up, going to work, and working for that dollar, right? Trading your time for money.
Yep. Yep.
and we're all used to that. That's how we're born and raised since way back.
Yeah.
And we have to think outside the box now, guys, because not only do we have to have multiple sources of income, this is my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, we have to learn how to budget our money, because once we start making that money, if we go and spend it all, guess what? If you make $500,000 annually and you spend every dollar, then you're still living paycheck to paycheck.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
So I'd rather have an income where I can budget and pay all the bills and still be able to be comfortable and do my thing, right? Like we're doing right now. But we're used to it, guys. We're used to growing up a certain way.
And that, you know what? That's a lot of programming. Since we've been in school, if you went through public schools, that's kind of the structure of it, is You know, you're taught to go to college, get a good job, and work that job until you retire. When that's not really financial freedom. Financial freedom is spending your time how you please, spending your days doing what you want to do, not what you have to do. So I agree 100%, and it definitely takes a mindset change, and you just have to be disciplined. You know, cut out the parties, cut out the useless nonsense every month, you know, and start understanding what you have in the bank, and you have to understand, okay, now I have to keep that. I can't spend it.
Yeah, and
Very good.
you know, you have your own expenses too, and being out of the house at such a young age, so
Yeah.
you obviously have felt that. So, wow. I have something I want to quickly read, and then we'll do a shout out. This is what I posted today on Facebook. I think it kind of sums up what we're trying to say, because I can just personally give you my opinion, since I've been doing this since 1998. Thrown in it, and they said sit next to this guy. He was the top producer. It gave me the perspective of the consolidation, and the simple loan, the simple interest really is so important. But I can tell you personally, since 1998, when I became a home loan consultant at 20 years old, the longer you wait to purchase a home, it will never be the right time. It will never be better. It will never be perfect. There are challenges with positives and negatives in any market at any time. I can tell you with certainty that the longer you wait, the more buying power you will lose, and prices will never drop enough to catch up with rates. I can tell you that values will end up being higher than the last high point, and some areas seem to always be increasing. Nobody who puts minimum down payment never stays with their original loan for life, because it doesn't make financial sense when rates are lower. History shows your house payment will end up being below the going rents when that time comes. That's for long-term people. And you will always have the equity at your fingertips. That's added. The longer you wait, the worse it gets. And waiting for rates to drop, good luck when that mad rush happens again, especially in California. You're better off refinancing. You will either rent or own. That's the news saying. You're going to rent or own. You will either rent or own. So that's kind of my message. So when's the best time to buy a home? In the present, whenever you can pull it off.
No.
Now,
right.
So everybody, give their last thoughts. It's getting close to the end. Raymond, what's your last thoughts?
Well, all I gotta say, guys, for everyone listening out there, it takes with you and you only, okay? I can sit here and blow smoke up your, you know what? But unless it comes from you guys, unless you start with your mindset shift and educating yourself into buying rentals, building a business, whatever it is, it starts with you guys. So please, please, please educate yourselves, guys. That's it.
and we're not millionaires or close to by any means. We're just
Raymond is now. And assets.
and assets, sure, but we're just people who want to save money, who want to spend their time as they please, and that's what shifted our mindset. Is we want to spend our days the way we want to spend them, and not work the regular 9 to 5, clocking in and doing that until you're, well, now the new retirement age is what, 70?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah, 70.
Wow.
And then you have barely enough when you retire. So that's the point of the mindset.
And here's the funny thing is when you change the mindset to the entrepreneurial mindset, you use what you have at hand, the job, the clocking in. When you change that, you end up working more, but it's enjoyable. You enjoy doing the I don't even know if you call it work, but you enjoy doing those other things that will create a foundation and a legacy for your family. Remember, one house leads to another. Rent versus owned, there's so many more advantages. And, you can always get a hold of us at 760-669-7813. My NMLS number, I'm an active loan originator and loan consultant, is 322-918. And you can get a hold of Bobby and I at 760-669-7813. Please visit Raymond's delicious, amazing restaurant. He helps seniors. Springhouse Restaurant. He'll give a shout out. Bobby's NMLS number is 206-0902.
Springhouse Restaurant, located at 16441 Main Street, Hesperia, California, 92345. Thank you, guys.
And I think the biggest part. Are we out of time? No. Okay.
Yeah, I have one more thing to say.
Yeah, the burr theory, like you were talking about.
Yes,
really that spoke to me. I like that.
I will teach you, baby.
Yes. Can you recap just those acronyms one more time? So
You
we know?
buy the property, you rehab the property, you rent the property out, you refinance out of that property, meaning you get all your capital out, if not 80%, but all of it, and then you repeat the process.
That is amazing. That one spoke to me.
Return on investment. There's other acronyms we're going to get into, because he just got $700,000 tax free. Didn't increase his payments but $100. We're getting into how he built an ADU, that stands for accessory dwelling unit, or accessory there, a lot of people say two different things, but it's going to get deep. 760-669-7813. You can call Robert Bulmer or Bobby Bulmer direct. We are active loan originators, 322-918. Bobby's is 206-0902. Please go eat at Raymond's restaurant, and you guys can get a hold of us anytime. You can get a hold of Raymond through me as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. You guys are the best.
Is that a wrap?
That's a wrap.
Nice.
Right on.
Right on.
Nice.
Thank you, guys.
I like that burr theory, dude.
but
That is amazing.
I learned it not even knowing that I was doing it, guys. I kid you
know.
not. I said, you know what? Why
I've
don't
been
I
there
just
the whole
refine-
time.
Yes.
He's thrown. I'm telling you, not every LO gets